and welcome along and welcome to the fourth video in my series looking at the new precision farming DLC for Farming Simulator 19. Last time, you might remember, we had a look at the new soil types and sampling of them and the changes those make to the game. In this video, we're going to be looking at how the DLC affects pH values and fertilizing with nitrogen. So we've got various bits of equipment around the map here in Felsroom. We're going to be starting off with this John Deere and this Breedle. This is full of lime. We're going to be looking at seeding. We're going to be looking at slurry spreading and manure spreading. We're going to be look at application of fertilizer as well, and we're going to have a look at cover crops, because cover crops are now really important. So there's the first thing I will say, and everything in my investigations, is forget everything you know about fertilizing and lime in Farming Simulator. This DLC changes it all. Before, you just had to lime it every three harvests and do two stages or 3 stages of fertilizing, and you were done. Here, it's something you have to manage and check and go through the entire time your crop is growing, and it is far more realistic. So we're gonna pop into the map here and see these changes for ourselves first. Looking on the precision farming tab here, we now have, well, actually going back to this here, you may see under the soil composition, we now have fertilizing and lime have been completely removed from this tab. And that is because they are now in here under the precision farming tab. Under here, you have pH values, which is controlled by spreading lime, and nitrogen values, which is controlled by doing an entire range of things. And we'll get into this in a bit. So basically, this is your fertilizer tab, but far more affects it than just fertilizing, and we'll go into that, and that is probably going to be the bigger part of this video. So let's have a look at lime and pH values. First things first, you can see our map currently has a fairly good lime coverage. We're a little bit low in places. Ideally, we want to be getting it up to this 6.5 to 7 range in order for our crops to gain the best yield. And you can see all of our fields are a little bit under. So what we're going to do is we're going to jump in the tractor, bring up the F1 menu. Oop. Tractor is sliding down the hill slightly. There we go. And you see we've got this brand new pH value lime application at the bottom of the F1 help menu. Now that only appears if you have that menu up. So you've got no values detected yet. So the moment I drive onto the field, you can see here it detects the pH value. So current pH is 6. We want to add about 0.5 of pH value to this. This field here is sandy loam that we're doing on, so the peak pH value for that is 6.5, and we've currently got the application rate set to auto. Now for using this, I personally recommend using auto. You can deactivate the automatic spreading rate. On PC, that is the comma button, and that allows you to control it, and then you can control it up with K and down with M. Now, my trouble with this is I would only use the normal the manual application rate if I had a field that was very similar the whole way across. You can see in the bottom left hand corner, field 29 is not a single value, so we would have to be adjusting this value the whole time. Far easier, and actually I think a little bit more realistic for precision farming to have that set to automatic. And you can now see that at the bottom of our help window, you've got application rate 0 tons per hectare, and that is tons per acre, and that is set to automatic, so auto in the brackets. If you take it off, then it takes that auto off. So we're going to turn this on, and it will then do the application rate, and we'll see going across this field, how that application rate is changing. And you can see here it's currently doing 0.75 because it's a little bit lower. The other thing to note with this DLC is the application of lime is definitely lower. It takes a lot longer to empty one of these trailers of lime, and we're at 92% at this point. And it's doing it well. And you can see in the mini-map on the bottom left that the color is now changing of the field. Now, the other thing to remember with manual application of lime is if you over-apply, so you can massively over-apply lime, that will affect the yield of your crop. So if you go towards the 8.25 kind of level of pH and max out your pH, that is going to affect your crop yield. There is no way that I found to reduce that at the moment. I'm guessing something may come in at some point with the Precision Farming DLC, because this is something that is ongoing, but you can see the change this is having on this field. It is evening it up, it's making it more acceptable to crops, and it is going to improve. And you can see now we're on silty clay land, and that's gone up to 7 in order to get the best out of it. And if we go and have a look in our map here now, you can see that this has evened out an awful lot more. So that is now a very much nicer area. And the difference here between these three, those are the different soil types. If we have a look here, you've got your sandy loam, your loam, and your silty clay. And each of them require a different level of pH to properly grow crops, or to get the best crop yield out. So that is something to watch as well. You're going to want a different level of pH for each of your crops. What I'm going to do now is I'm going to go and drop this down the bottom, and really that is what covers what you need to do as far as lime and pH goes on this. Don't over apply the lime. It will make your crop, it will lower the yield of your crop, and it is a waste of money as well, because obviously you're putting in excess lime, and there is no way, as far as I can tell, to lower that yet. So let's set a hired worker off this, and we'll go and have a look at the next thing, which is applying some fertilizer. And where we're going to start with applying fertilizer is a cultivator. Yes, we are starting with a cultivator, and this is because the very basic version of fertilizer in this game is an existing crop. Personally, I would normally go and try and do this with something like oilseed radish, which is a proper cover crop. But we do have a field of wheat here that has bad nitrogen. If we go and have a look in here, and we've got pretty bad nitrogen all across this field here. In fact, all of our fields have it. So we want to raise that up, and we want to try and get it as close to the optimum as possible. So let's pop into here, and we're going to jump into this tractor. This is an 8R, I think, and just drop this down. And you won't see the immediate effect on the minimap. So unlike other times when you're fertilizing, you get to see changes on the minimap. This you don't. But if you come into here, you can already see this is raising up the fertilizing level. Not by much. I think that's partly because this is a fully grown crop. But we are cultivating a crop in. So as a result, you end up raising your fertilizer a little bit, and this is what this DLC is all about. It's about managing your fertilizer levels, managing your nitrogen levels, and getting them as close to peak as you can. In this field here, you can now see that we've raised our nitrogen a bit just by plowing, or just by cultivating in this cover crop, and as a result, cover crops now have a value. And it's not just, so if you put something in like oilseed radish, the effect you're going to get from it isn't to give you a whole fertilizer stage, but instead is going to be to give you a bump in your nitrogen levels when you come to do your next when you're coming to do your field and get your fertilizer levels to where you want them. So let's set this off doing this on GPS, and that can then fill this field in. But yeah, so first set of fertilizer, or first tool for fertilizing, is your cultivator or your plow. Because yeah, take your cover crop and just plow it or cultivate it into the ground. You will raise your fertilizer level. Our next form of fertilizer is manure. In fact, it's animal waste in general. So you've got manure and you've got slurry. We're going to put some slurry on here, and I'll show you the field before this. Now, you can see here our nitrogen levels on field 20 are pretty poor. We've got, yeah, we're not quite at zero anywhere, but we're down at 20 to 40. So you want to put in on your manure before you plant. And the reason for this is because if you have a look on here, manure does not have a specific amount to lay for a crop, and we'll get to this in a little bit later. But manure and slurry are general fertilizers in the same way as whole cropping is. So by putting these on the field, oh, we need to unfold this. By putting this on the field, you're giving a base level of fertilizer and bringing the fertilization and the nitrogen level up so that you're getting it closer to the optimum for your crops coming in. And you can see at the moment we're using manure at quite a fast rate because the amount that we're trying to pull the nitrogen up here is quite high. You want to get it to a decent level and give yourself a good grounding for what you're doing, but you can see that it's not going to pull it all the way. And yes, you could cultivate this in and do a second application, but it is all about pulling this up and getting your nitrogen levels to the best place for your crop. And you don't want to over fertilize. Over fertilizing can have two effects. The first is that you waste a lot of money because if you're fertilizing too much, it doesn't make any it's not going to make any positive difference to your crop. In fact, there's a good possibility that it could have a negative impact on your yield by affecting your pH level. So you kind of want to make sure that you're not negatively impacting your crops in that kind of way. And you can see here where the field is really poor and needs a lot of fertilizer, we are getting through the manure quite quickly. Whereas if we were to do like on the edge here with the variable spray rate, it is now taking a little bit less because it's not needing quite so much. And you can see instead of 60 kilograms as it was a minute ago, it's now taking 40 kilograms to do the area because we're doing a smaller area. So it's not quite so much needed. And then we can look at our whole field once we've done that. And in fact, you see that if we stop in the field, it automatically cuts off because it has got that spray rate and because it doesn't want to put any extra on there. So if we hop over now to our slurry spreader, we have a similar situation with this. So this will again be a more general application of fertilizer and is not crop specific. And when we line it up here and get it on the field, there we go. It has, it's now showing us. And again, field 29, pretty poor as far as the nitrogen goes. So we want to turn it on. And if we go over, now the interesting thing I've got here is we've not got an application amount on this. So this is just running automatically. but you can still see at the bottom of the screen how much it's doing and how fast it's doing it. What I don't know is why we haven't got the extra screen on here. And away we go. Turn it on again. No. So the slurry spreaders, there does seem to be some issue with the slurry spreaders in that it doesn't show the applicator for that. And to be honest, this is the first time I've had this issue. It is obviously using the variable rate. Now, I have had a couple of people have problems with the slurry spreaders, but it is working in exactly the same way as the manure spreader. So I'm guessing there's an oversight or a bug there, but it does. The manure spreader, basically, it works the same way. So yeah, that is a quick look at the Samsung. It obviously has a bit of a problem, but you can see the effect it's having on the field. So with your base fertilizing and base nitrogen applied to your soil, as we have here with the manure, the next thing you want to do is to be seeding, and there is an effect here too with this DLC. And as we can see here, we've got the John Deere what are we, 6230R here with the Vatstad seeder on it, and this basically has fertilizer as well as seed available to it. And here we've got here we have corn. So what we want to do is unfold this, and you can see that there is no effect at all from the DLC. The DLC is you know, this is the base game look. However, if we go back here and we add in some fertilizer into the front, you can now see the lower screen, the mini map has changed. It's now showing the new DLC mini map version for nitrogen. And as you get closer to the field, it works it all out, and you can see here that we're now in the field with nitrogen set up, fertilizer set up and everything, and it's giving me a rate, or was giving me a rate for that. So turn it on, and there we can see it's now applying fertilizer as we seed. And one question I'd had, one question somebody had given me is, so seeders that do that have fertilizer are now useless because you need specific seed amount, need specific fertilizer amounts for specific seeds. No, they're not. You can see at the bottom the left-hand side of the screen there, increasing nitrogen level to optimum value for corn on loamy sand. And if I bring this up and I switch it off and I switch to sunflowers and I turn it on again, it should give me sunflowers on loamy sand. There we go. Go forward a little bit, and we now have for sunflowers on loamy sand. So this, so far from it, this is now optimizing for this particular crop for fertilizer on here. And you can see, because we still have a bad level, or we're still bringing the fertilizer up at the moment, it's not doing a full amount of fertilizing to get it to there. It's actually, in fact, the target is reached, so we're not using any fertilizer for the sunflowers on here. The sunflowers don't need as much as other crops, which is absolutely brilliant. It means that if you are needing to use fertilizer, then if you don't need to use fertilizer for crop, if it doesn't need to place it in there, then it won't. It will just put the seed in, which is absolutely brilliant. And the same is true for that if you were to put a hired worker on this. So the target is reached. It doesn't need any extra fertilizing for sunflowers, and you can see the amount of fertilizer for sunflowers is not going down. Absolutely brilliant. I love that. In fact, we have too much fertilizer and it's recognizing that. If we pop over to this tractor here, we can see that this is a, so that was a planter, sorry, this is a seeder. If we unfold this seeder, you can see that we have various, we can switch between the various ones here. So I'm going to choose oats for this field. We'll bring the seeder onto the field, turn it on, and you can see we now have increasing nitrogen level to optimum value for oats. And in this particular case, we need to add 40 kilograms of nitrogen per acre. So down that goes. And we're now applying the correct amount of fertilizer for oats that we're planting on this field. So this I love. I love the fact that different fertilizers need to be used at different times in different ways, and that the mineral fertilizers, so the liquid and solid fertilizer that you spread, those are best applied after you have seeded, because then you're applying exactly the amount that you want. And applying and putting manure on before you seed brings it up just enough so that you spend less money with these with your solid and your liquid fertilizers. Absolutely brilliant. I love that. But that is how you use fertilizer on here. Try and bring your fertilizer up a little bit with your manure and your slurry, but you're going to be still doing lifting further on. And it is no longer a case of there are 2 fertilizer stages. It's you need to apply enough fertilizer at various points in order to bring your fertilizer levels to a point where it maximizes the yield of your crop. So our 3 fields, 19, 20 and 29, are now all seeded. We have wheat in 19, we've got sunflowers in 20, and in 29 we have planted oats. So we've got a nice variety of crops here, and you can see here the different levels of pH. So the pH we've got is all good around most of our fields. We're maybe a touch low there, but we know that we've applied lime to all of these now, and they should be at the optimum values for the different soil types. And that is the thing. Everything that you have on precision farming is you need to remember that different soil types require different pH values and different fertilization values for each crop in order to produce the highest yield. And you can see here, we've got this loamy sand going through here. We've got sandy loam going through the middle of 19 and the bottom half of 20. And then we've got loam at the bottom here. And then we've got this silty clay here. So we've got an example of all of the different soil types that we're using here. And you can see the difference here. Higher pH is needed for the clay. For the loam we've got down a bit, and then we've got a little bit lower again for the loamy sand, and then the sandy loam at the bottom. I think that's the right way around, is it? Yeah, loamy sand is the yellow, and the sandy loam is then slightly less than the loamy sand at the bottom is the one that needs the lowest pH. And if we have a look at our nitrogen levels, we can look at the different levels here. And this is the difference of application of each crop. Now, 19 already had a fairly high amount of nitrogen in it, but more has been applied for the wheat. The sunflowers did not need any or next to no extra nitrogen at all. So they have sort of stayed at that lower level. And then field 29 here, again, we couldn't apply enough for some parts of it to bring it up. So we need this silty clay here. That is going to need application of more nitrogen because it's lower. But this is the thing. It doesn't tell you how much more you need to apply. It just tells you how much there is in the soil. So let's fast forward and let's see how this picture changes as our crops start to grow. So here we are at the first stage of crop growth, and you might notice nothing's changed. So as our crops are growing, they're not actually requiring, or they're not using up the nitrogen that they have, or certainly at this first stage. And if we take the solid fertilizer spreader here now out over to here, you can see that the nitrogen level for our sunflowers doesn't need to be increased. Similarly, if we head over here, we've got the target reached for the wheat as well. So what we're going to do is we'll take this over to the oats, because in all honesty, I was expecting, from what I'd seen before, I thought that those were going to drop as things grew, but it hasn't. So what we'll do is we'll head over to the oats, and the oats, I believe, especially up at the top end of the field, will need some extra fertilizing in order to need it. And yeah, look at that. That has reached target there for the silty clay amazingly. But further down here, we did just have a minute ago. No, we have reached this for all of our crops here. So I do still want to demonstrate this. I am just going to buy field 28. And having bought field 28, we can now, and given it a quick scan, we can now see that its nitrogen level is pretty low, even for sunflowers. Sunflowers, we can see they need to be bumped up a little bit. And I think for silty clay, they're probably going to need to be maybe not quite so high looking at this. But yeah, certainly for the loamy ground, we know that they need to be this darker green, I think. So let's pull onto the field here. And sunflowers being sunflowers, hopefully we're going to be able to see this. And you can see here that there does need to be quite a bit of a boost for sunflowers on low. So let's turn this on. And this is now trying to do a massive load of work. But because it's a solid fertilizer spreader, and this is what I wanted to demonstrate with this, because it's a solid fertilizer spreader, it's able to do that extra heavy lifting to get it to do it like this. So that's what I was talking about here, was we had to do 180 kilograms per acre there. Whereas with this, again, we're going to be doing a bit of heavy lifting with it. It's a nice wide sprayer. And so out that comes. And you can see here again, we need to apply quite a bit. And now we're onto it. And it's actually got, again, quite a bit of heavy lifting for this to do. And it is doing it, I think. I'll lift that out of the ground. There we go. And you see 160 kilograms per acre, and it's doing, sorry, it's doing 455 liters automatically. Not applying it everywhere, interestingly enough. But there we go. So I don't know what was, I have seen a couple of people have a similar issue like this where it doesn't seem to apply it, but it has on a couple of places. But certainly, if you need to get a lot of, if you need to raise your fertilizer up a lot, then using the sprayer or using the spreader is definitely the way to go after you have done your growing crops, because it will then apply the right amount. So a little bit of a messy end to the video, but I think we've got there in the end. I hope this has given you a good overview of the pH and the nitrogen functionality of the DLC. If you have any questions, feel free to put them in the comments down below. I will do my best to answer them. For now, though, all that remains is for me to say thank you for watching. I hope you have enjoyed this video. Please give it a like, drop us a comment, and give it a share. And for all the latest videos from Virtual Farmer, please subscribe to the channel, ring that bell, and I will see you next time. Goodbye.